Welcome to Command the Doc, a step-by-step guide to mastering Google Docs. Now, normally I'd start with how to get access, how to set up Gmail, et cetera, et cetera. But as students in my course, I want you to understand the power of Google Doc as a collaborative tool, as a learning tool, as a note-taking tool, and as a productivity tool. So I'm starting with Doc. It is the tool I use the most within the Google ecosystem. I use it in collaboration with Google Sheet and with Google Slides. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to get started with Google Docs. Now, if you don't have a Google account, you're going to have to get one. But if you're part of one of my classes, and in particular this class, you will have access to this document that I'm sharing with you, so you can see how to use Google, see how I use it, and then you can decide if you want to get a free Google account, or if you are like me, I run my business using the paid Google Workspace. So I'm going to assume you already have access to Google document. Somebody's shared a Google Doc with you, or I'm sharing this one with you, and you know how and why to use it. So to create a new Google Doc, you can do one of two things. One, you can go to docs.google.com, which is what this is. Or the other thing, if you have a Chrome, if you're using Google Chrome, over here, there is a Google Apps list, and you'll see Docs is right there. So same thing, either way, you click on that, it'll take you, it's a shortcut to here. So you'll see those screens are identical, and you can either click on this blank document, or you can use one of the templates, and there's a whole bunch of others. I like the templates because I can learn how other people set things up and use them. Always learning something by looking. And one of the things I would challenge you to do is when you're in a document, don't just look at the words, look at how they created it, look at the elements of it, and be curious. That's my number one advice when you're learning new software. Be curious. With Google Docs, you can't break something. I've tried. There's nothing to be broken. There's nothing to wreck. If you're doing something with text and you don't like it, there's an undo feature, and there's also a time travel feature where you can look at previous versions and revert. So this is a blank document. And basically, what I want to stress here, a lot of people say, where's the save button? Google has eliminated save buttons, and I know this is a legacy from desktop software. I won't name names, but with the Microsoft world, you are used to saving, and if you don't save, you've lost your work. Google has an auto save, and it's really good. You make a change, it's saved. Now, within that session, you can undo or you can redo. Those are still there, but there's no save button. So when you're getting started, the first thing you want is to come up to the top left here where it says Untitled Document and give it a name. Now, the other thing you can do is, if you haven't given it a name, you can type something on the first line, click over here, and it'll copy that. Now, I've already, here, let me show you that again. So I've typed in the first line, click over here, and it automatically pulls that first line. Now, I like to know what I'm doing. I like to be able to see things. So one of the things, after knowing that we don't need to save, the second most important thing, in my humble opinion, is I go to the View menu and show non-printing characters. You may want to turn it on. You may want to turn it off. I'm old school. I like to know the difference between a hard return, which is that little paragraph symbol, and a soft return, which is the little down to the left arrow. Two different things for formatting. So I would like to see what's going on. This way I can make some changes. But let's get into some of the core skills. And I apply the Pareto principle to everything I do, including learning software. And in my experience, there's about 20% of the functionality that I will use 80% of the time. So if I master that first 20%, then I can decide, do I want to invest the time to learn the other 80%? Usually the answer is no, I don't need it. So here are a few functions that I believe everybody should know. So if you're working with a file, you should be aware of how to name it, how to rename it, and how to organize it. So anytime you want to change the file name, you can come up here. You can highlight the whole thing, delete it, and type something new. And as soon as you tab out, Google recognizes that's the name of the file. So I'm going to go back to the original. The other thing you'll see is here you can star this. If this is a document you use a lot, star it. Use the star sparingly, because if you star everything, nothing stands out. If you star only your most critical documents, so for example, for every project, I have an overview document where I put my research and things like that. While the project's active, I will star that document. Once I'm done with it, I unstar it. Now here you can move. So this is actually kind of really cool feature. I didn't know this for the longest time. And it says, here's the current location. And maybe I want to move it to, say, this folder. I'm not going to, but just maybe. All I have to do is click move. Now, if I know there's a subfolder in there, I can double click just like normal, and you can see I can move it to any one of these. Now, interestingly, this does not have a move. The number 9 directory does not have move, and the reason is that's where it already is. So it's very powerful and very intelligent. And basically you can move it to wherever. We'll get into, I have a separate training on Google Drive where you can see where things are. But from our perspective, we don't need to know that just yet. So next thing, I want to talk about sharing documents. And this is sort of where I think a lot of people could do better and maybe should do better. Up here in the top right, we have a share button and a drop-down arrow. And for the record, two very different things, and I'll explain that in a second. But when you click the drop-down arrow, it's a quick option, and it'll allow you to copy the link, and you'll see the link is private to only me. So this copy link won't help anyone because they won't be able to get in. They won't be able to get into the file because it's private. Now, if you want to share, the first time you need to share, you click on the actual share button, and there's a couple of options. So you'll see this is private to only me. I am the editor. And because it's my document, I can't downgrade my permissions. That's okay. I don't want to. If you're working in a collaborative group, what's really cool is you can share a document with individual people, groups of people, and groups is a defined term in Google. They actually allow you to create groups. So you'd have a collaborative group, and instead of typing everybody's email individually, you just type the group name, or you can add a calendar event name, and everybody who's invited to the calendar event will get the document shared with them. Now, this is the safest if you're sharing something that's maybe a bit private, and I want you to understand it will prevent people from sharing the document. Now, one thing, people can go to the file menu and make a copy. You can't prevent people from being people. But this is the safest. So only people with access can open with the link. So those are the people you list, and they'll be listed here. So I'm going to add Rich here just for a second. And basically, editor gives him full access. He can do anything with the document. Commenter, he can add comments, which I will show you in a minute. Or viewer is if it's read only. So think about your document, what you're hoping to accomplish with collaboration. Rarely do I give somebody else full editor access because it's just not a good practice. And if I give somebody full editor access, I have to read the entire document again to make sure they haven't changed anything. If you're sending a proposal and you want their feedback, send it as a comment, allow them to comment. And if you just want it for their information, so for example, this document that I'm sharing will be view only, so everybody can see it, they can't edit it. So restricted is the most secure. Then I can do anybody within my organization. So anybody who has an @Pharos business email address will be able to view it or comment or edit. And I can even make it searchable, or I can make it so they can only find it with a direct link. And then this is the least desirable. But for example, this particular document, I don't necessarily know who's going to access it. Somebody is going to sign up for the course. I want to make it accessible. So, and I don't want them to edit. Now, for my smaller courses, for my mastermind, for example, I might make this anyone with the link is a commenter so that they can add comments. But for this particular one, I'm going to have read-only viewer access. If this is something that you want collaboration on, then you'd give them editor access. And then you would just copy the link and hit done. Now, I'm going to leave it restricted for now. So, but then over here, if I needed the link again, I would just come to the drop down on the right and say copy link. So knowing those 3 permission levels is critical. And best practices are to use Google Groups. So for example, you would have the marketing group or the sales team or whatever it is, give the group access. And then when employees come and go, you can add or remove access to the group. That way you're not always trying to figure out who has access to what as an individual. Manage groups, not people. And so you can, when you share and add them, you just hit send and they'll get access to the document. So that's one of my favorite features. And for some reason, it's the one that scares people the most. Now, another feature I think is absolutely critical, especially when you're collaborating, is the comment feature. And so you can either use the show all comments. So this will show you what's comments. And it's pretty cool because you can see open comments. As you can see, there are none. Or you can see resolved comments. You can see I made some comments to myself here. And then in the tabs, we're not going to get into tabs, but basically you could have multiple documents within a document. So under command the doc, I could have the introduction here as tab 1, and then I could have a detailed course as tab 2. So I can filter between tabs. Right now I only have the 1 tab. But basically comments allow me to collaborate with somebody to give me feedback without getting into my document and making changes. So to add a comment, you can go to the insert menu And what I love about Google and most products now, they have multiple ways to get to it. So I can go to insert and then comment, or I can remember Control Alt M. I don't remember shortcuts, so I'm not going to even bother. You'll see I use the menu a lot. I'm just faster that way. You do what works for you. Now, from a collaboration point of view, so you can see I highlighted the text. I went to the insert menu, comment. Now, from a collaborative point of view, if you type the @ symbol and then somebody's name, and then start, what's really cool is you can assign it to somebody. And when you assign it, they get an email saying, hey, you've got a comment in this document. So I'm going to hit assign. And now you'll see that this text is in fact highlighted. That means there is a comment. So again, to view comments, you click on this little bubble up top on the right. And now if I wanted to send this person, in this case, it's me, an email, I can just click on that and my inbox will open up. But if I want to comment on the comment, I can type here. And again, when I type the person's email address, they'll get an email saying there's a comment for you. So I'm going to hit reply, and basically this is a good way to ask your questions. Hey, do you think we should do this? What do you think of that? Is this wording okay? And then when it's done, make sure, so you can click on these 3 arrows. You can either edit your comment, you can delete it, you can add emoji, or you can get a link and you can send it to somebody directly saying, hey, check this out. But when you're done, best practice is mark it as resolved. And magically, you'll see the highlighting went away. Now, I can always recall that by going to clicking here, looking at the comments, looking at resolved, and I can see the comments. Now, it's up to you personally. If the comments were minor, I'll delete them so that only the most important comments are left. So for example, if somebody says, I think this word should be option A versus option B, great. Pick your option and delete it. I don't care about that as a trail. But if it's major, oh, we need to put in this entire section, I might keep it for future reference. So you can use that name to tag somebody, you comment, and it's really useful because I'm not allowing somebody to edit my document. I'm allowing them to give me feedback on it. Now, suggesting mode is also very useful. However, in my experience, most people don't know it exists, don't understand what it is. So relying on it sometimes bites me in the backside later. So suggesting mode is powerful. Over here, you will see the little pencil with the word editing. So if I share and I give somebody editor access, they have the exact ability I have. They can come in and make all the changes they want in my document. My little pet peeve is when somebody comes in and starts messing around with my formatting and my layout. It's like, why would you do that? And I get really annoyed when people, well, I like this font better than that font. Let's agree on the content, then we can worry about the font. Font comes last, not first. Anyways, so editing, you're giving somebody, and this is for you to know as well, you should always know, am I editing this document or doing something else? So the 3 options are editing, suggesting, or viewing. So if somebody has made suggestions and I want to see the final version, I will click on viewing. And basically what I see is the print ready final document, assuming the suggestions have been accepted. So If you're looking to see what the final version would look like with the suggestions, that's where you would go to the viewing only option. But what I like about suggesting, and if somebody gives you a document, this is a courtesy thing. Either you ask and say, may I make changes directly in the document? Or may I use suggesting? Personally, if I don't know the difference, or if it's time sensitive and I don't have time, I will always use suggesting, and I'll show you what suggesting allows. So insert a section on viewing. So what suggesting does, you'll see this is sort of different color highlighted. But when I click on it, there's like red box around it and the little red tag on the top left of the text. And it pops up with, so again, this will get confusing, but Jeff said to Jeff, I think you should insert a section on viewing. Now, I can agree. And what that does is it becomes part of the document, or I can disagree and it gets deleted. Either way, it's allowing me to approve or deny the suggestion. So it's really helpful. Now, if by chance somebody forgets and goes straight into editing, all is not lost. You can view version history and you can revert to any version. So again, you can come up shortcut. You can click on this little back arrow around the clock, or you can go to the file, version history, and you can name the current version. So what I do before I send something to somebody is I name a current version. That way I can revert back if they make a bunch of changes, or I can see the version history. And this is really cool because this document, for example, I've made a few changes. So if I go back in time, oops, too soon. That is the first version where I actually created the document. If that's what I wanted, I would hit restore this version. Then I can share that this is where I added some more content. This was a named version that I did for my recording. This was after I made a few edits, and this is today's current version. So name it something so that you understand. So if I'm sending it, this might be client draft ready for review or something like that. And then I can always come back to it if somebody messes up. I've had this many times where people start messing around with formatting and they don't know what they're doing, so they make it really messy. That's how you fix that. Now, smart chips, I'm going to be honest, I haven't used this enough. And what I mean by that is it's so powerful, it's so cool. I'm still figuring it out. But if you type the @ symbol and then start typing a person's name, you can add them there. And then basically it is kind of like embedding their details. So you can record a pronunciation of their name. You can send them an email. You can add a calendar. You can see their details, or you can add other smart chips. So I use date a lot, and basically this just allows me to pick a date from my calendar. Maybe I want to pick the time. Maybe I want to pick the time zone. And it just inserts the date, and then I can go back and edit that, or I can add a meeting. And then the other big one is you can add tasks, timers, you can add a vote. So there's a lot of powerful things, and you can add building blocks. You can embed files in there or calendar events. So it's really useful to add the smart chips, and really there's a whole bunch of options. Pick and choose, but instead of telling people, for example, maybe I have a memo about a document, instead of telling people go find the document, I'd put the link directly to the document here. And what I like about documents, where's one? Okay, it's doing something weird. Hey. Okay. It's not allowing me. There we go. So when you put a document, it shows you here. The little blue thing is a Google Doc. It's got a different one for Google Sheets, etc. So you can actually see what kind of document you have. Now, this is by far the most time-saving tool. And this is when I rant about people messing up my formatting, this is what I mean. So basically, this is the styles, preset styles. So basically what you've got is an option for normal text. That's kind of the body text of your file. The title, I use that literally. I write books, so that's the title of my book, the subtitle of my book. And then heading 1, 2, 3, and 4 are basically predefined styles for those different levels of headings. And as you can see, they go from high level heading to subheading to subheading to subheading. And then you can save your default, you can reset styles, etc. And basically what I like about this is with every one of these, you have the option to apply the style to the text you've got highlighted, or to the row the row you've got active. Or if you've changed it, you can ask to update normal text to match. So I'll show you what I mean. So, and this is best practices. If I get a document with multiple fonts and different sizes and styles, it tells me you didn't know how to use the tool properly. So let's say, for example, I want to take this row of text, highlight your text, and I want to change it from Arial to Garamond, and I want to change it from 11 to 12. So basically, you can see that is different from that. Now, I can decide I want all of my normal text to use this Garamond and this size. So I can go in and say update normal text to match. Or if I change my mind and I want to go back to Arial 11, I would apply normal text. So if I update normal text to match, what you will see is all of my other normal text is now EB Garamond 12. So I'm going to revert because I just don't want to get into that editing. But to revert, I just say apply normal text. And you can do that to preset all of your heading 1, etc. But what's really cool is when you do this, then anytime you add new, so let's say I'm adding something here and oops, this should be a heading. All I do is go to heading 1, apply heading 1. And because it's a soft return, the entire thing is turned into a heading 1. But it's really good for layout, for formatting. So that's a good way to get some massive productivity without becoming a professional editor. Now, there's a couple more features we're going to get to. Templates is another one I use. I'm going to say I use it a lot, and I'd like to use it more. So I showed you this already about how to create a new document. And here you can open up somebody else's template and you can apply it. So here's an onboarding notes. Somebody's formatted it. They put a little bar at the top. They put some layout, and it's just a really good starting point. So if you need a template, you can find one that matches your needs. And you can use the Google search to find options. And you can either see them all or you can hide them all. Now, if you don't want, so if you create a document and you want to share it as a template, it is shared. What I mean by that is everybody who uses Google can, in fact, find your template and use it. I don't necessarily do that. So what I'll do is I'll create a document and I'll lock it so that only I can be the view. I'm the editor, everybody else is a viewer, and they can create. So if we're having private internal documents, let's pretend this is my original document. They go to the file menu and make a copy, and they would be prompted to rename it. They would prompt to say where they're saving it. It checks the sharing options. I would not personally copy comments and suggestions. I would definitely not include resolved. And then you just hit make a copy. So effectively, you do have a template. Now, this is one of the features that blew my mind when it first came out, and then I forgot about it, but it is highly, highly useful. I do a lot of talk to text, so I will say something, and for anybody who doesn't know this, we speak faster than we can type. Even really good typists are still faster talkers. So you can go to Tools, and here, voice typing, and just click wherever in the document you want, and you'll see this little icon pops up. And by the way, if you've recorded a training video and you forgot to transcribe it or didn't have time to transcribe it, you can play the video and with Google Doc open, and it'll transcribe it for you. Now, one thing I've learned is it only works when your Google Docs is on top. It's the active window. So if you minimize it, it stops with the typing. So this little microphone guy comes up, and basically it will type exactly what you say, M's and ahs and stutters and all, and it will go on and on. It is like the world's longest run-on sentence. If you want a period or an exclamation point or a comma, you have to actually say period. And you'll notice there when I use the word period in a sentence, it contextually used the word. When I said period and stopped, it put the period in. So capitalize A, all. It's not perfect because you've got to, basically you're going to get run-on sentences and it will give you exactly what you said. However, what I do is once I have this, I will paste this into my favorite AI, whether it's Gemini or ChatGPT, and say, please clean this up, retain the original text, and give me headings, subheadings, and paragraphs to make this more readable. And then whenever you're done, just hit the microphone again, and it stops. So it's a really cool feature, and basically it allows you to speak whatever you're working on rather than try to type it. Now, I don't use tables enough. I think the world needs more tables, but basically you go to the insert menu and you can insert the table, and there's some templated versions, task tractor, decision log. Play with these because they're useful. And if you don't play with them, you don't know what they are. But if you've got a table in mind, you can just go to this, and the maximum is 20 by 20. So I can insert a table that has 20 rows and 20 columns. Now, I can't think of why I'd want that, but if I'm using a 20 by 20 table, I'm probably setting up a spreadsheet, but it's really handy if, for example, you want to do a simple list. It says 3 by 6. So basically that gives us 3 columns, 6 rows. So 3 by 8 is going to be 3 columns, 8 rows. And basically, if you're in there, you can pin a header as the top. So you can pin it, you can move these, drag and drop, move them around. And basically you can do some things like give these borders, things like that. So very handy. It's a good way to organize some things. Now, I've never used anything other than the checklist icon, but if you've got a bullet or a numbered list or just plain text, I can easily turn it into a checklist. And what I like about this is I can give this to somebody, give them edit access, and when they mark things off, it crosses it out. It does a strike through. So it's really handy to see where you're at with things. And now we're going to get into the collaboration, because this is, in my humble opinion, the big difference between using desktop products where you have to email the file. Then, God forbid, I've had projects where I emailed a file, the other person on the other end had made changes to an older file, sent it back. All of a sudden, we've got versioning nightmares. But here you can collaborate, and I can put in somebody's name. I can set the document to comment only. This is when it's almost done and you want some feedback. We can use the suggesting mode, and we can use comments as a way. So, for example, with my courses, every student in my private courses, in my mastermind, they have their own private document. Think of that. That's where they ask me questions about their homework. So they'll do their homework in a Google Doc. They'll share it with me. I'll be the commenter in that case. They'll share it with me. I'll give them feedback. Maybe they have questions for me, so they'll tag me and say @Jeff. But basically, the private stuff about their specific homework is in their specific private doc. Whereas we also have a group document where I'm going to be teaching the material. They can ask questions directly in the document. And the distinction is anything about your private stuff, put it in your private document. Anything that you think would benefit the rest of the group or just adds clarity, put it in the group document. And it's really powerful because everybody sees it. My pet peeve is when we use other tools like Slack or email, I have to remember that that's where the feedback came in. Whereas if you put it right in the document, it's there. I don't need to look for it. And then we're not going to do this in detail, but you can embed a document in Google Sites. You can take a link, put it directly in an email. And I use Google Classroom a lot. There will be a Google Classroom set up for this course. You can attach documents so that you can use them as either assignments, announcements. It's very versatile. And honestly, every single project, I start with an overview document. I put all of my links in there. I put all of my research in there. And then anytime I need it, I can go back and find it. And here's a cool little little shortcut. If you're using Gmail and you have an email open, you can copy the link from your address bar in Chrome, paste it into a document, and you can go straight to that email anytime you need. So if somebody sends you an email and you need that as vital reference, I put it in my overview document. So I'm never looking for things. Everything is in that overview. And then, so the overview, think of it, it's my private notes. It's where I keep things. When I start the project, there's going to be a spreadsheet to track, things like that. But I always start with my overview. And you can insert, it's kind of cool. You can go into, say, Google Sheet, and you'll see these are links to Google Docs. Now, if I paste, so I copied in Google Sheet, I'm here pasting in Google Docs, and basically I can link to the spreadsheet, so it'll always be live. Any changes to the spreadsheet update in my doc, or I can just, it's a static, I need this once, I can paste it unlinked. So I'm going to link, and then if I change something, so let's say I delete that, and then you see the update comes up, that is gone. Now I needed that, so I'm going to undo that. But that's really handy if, you know, say you're doing a budget analysis and you need to share something. The other thing, so I copied that and I don't want it to be a spreadsheet, I want it to be a table, I can right click and say paste without formatting. And you'll see it's kind of ugly, but here I can, then it's just text, it's not embedded. So I can put slides in here and I can put forms, and it will auto preview if I have a link to a form. So for example, Google, there we go. It should auto preview. There we go. So then I can either copy the link, I can edit the link, I can remove the link, or I can click on it and go straight to the form. So if you want feedback on a document that doesn't have to be in context, I use forms. Now we're going to briefly talk about Google Apps Script. If you go to the extensions and there's a tool called App Script, you can create all kinds of amazing automations. It's literally built into every Google tool, whether it's Sheets, Forms, Docs, and basically you can do some automation. So for example, I can have an email sent when somebody checks something. I can autofill data. I can pull in reports. I can send emails. It is really powerful. We're too powerful for today. But I would challenge you, if you're not comfortable with Google Docs, just play. There's nothing you can break. You've always got your undos. You've always got your version history. But I highly recommend get comfortable. This is the age of collaboration. And in my humble opinion, Docs takes collaboration to a new level. It gets communication in one place, gets it out of email, gets it out of Slack, Discord, whatever you use. So to me, this is a dashboard for a conversation. If you're talking about a document, if you're sharing information, why not have it in a document? And by the way, old school, I used to send longer emails. Now, if something is longer, I'll send an email with a doc embedded and say, I'd love your feedback on this. Again, it's just a really great tool for collaboration.